The whisper started with one sentence, a sentence that should never have reached the public, a sentence that set London on fire. Tom Hardy confronted Starmer, and it wasn't friendly. Within minutes, rumours tore through Westminster like a storm, a secret meeting, raised voices, security stepping in, and a clash powerful enough to shake the foundations of British politics and the British film industry. Nobody knows why it happened. Nobody knows who leaked it, but tonight, everything becomes clear. It began behind a locked door inside a private room beneath a Westminster annex. A place normally used for quiet conversations between ministers, never for something like this. Hours before the story broke, staff noticed something unusual. Extra guards, whispered orders, phones confiscated at the entrance, and protocol suddenly tightened in a way no one could explain. At first, it looked like Starmer was preparing for a confidential strategy meeting. But then, out of nowhere, a black SUV pulled up without registration plates. The vehicle didn't appear on any official log, no security briefing, no press note, nothing. The only person who stepped out was a man no one expected, Tom Hardy, dressed simply, no entourage, no publicist, no warning. Inside the building, the tension shifted immediately. Senior aides exchanged glances, confused, unsettled, unsure why one of Britain's most famous actors had arrived at a government facility unannounced. And yet Hardy walked past everyone with cold purpose, heading straight toward the restricted area without hesitation. Witnesses later described the atmosphere as unnatural, the kind of heavy silence that falls before a storm. One advisor, who spoke only under anonymity, said Hardy looked like a man carrying a message he did not want to deliver, but had no choice but to deliver. The door closed behind him, and for 30 minutes not a single sound escaped the room, no footsteps, no voices, nothing. Security officers stood outside, hands clasped tightly, pretending not to listen, but clearly aware something extraordinary was unfolding. Then it happened. A sudden impact from inside the room, a thud so strong that the guards flinched. Someone's voice rose sharply, muffled by the thick walls, but unmistakably angry. Another voice followed, firmer, deeper, and unafraid. Those who heard it said the exchange didn't sound like a disagreement between a politician and a celebrity. It sounded like a confrontation between two men who had reached a breaking point. Starmer rarely raised his voice in public or private settings. He was known for controlled language, measured tone, carefully planned phrases. But in that room, witnesses say his anger sounded real, raw, even personal, and Hardy, usually calm and steady, sounded equally relentless. Nobody knew what triggered it. Nobody knew what the two men were fighting about. But something inside that room was too explosive to remain hidden. When the door finally opened, the air changed instantly. Hardy walked out first, jaw clenched, eyes burning with a mix of frustration and finality. He didn't look left or right. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't offer a handshake. He didn't even slow down. He just left, silent, quick, and with a level of resolve that made every observer uneasy. Starmer emerged seconds later. His expression was tight, unusually pale, and his staff immediately noticed the shift. He muttered something to an aide, something short, sharp, and clearly urgent, before disappearing into another room and ordering all reports of the meeting to be sealed. But it was already too late, because someone inside the building had recorded just enough to expose the truth, not the words, not the details, but the clash itself, a secret confrontation, two powerful figures, and a story Britain wasn't ready for. The leak didn't begin with a video, it didn't begin with audio. It began with a message sent from an unknown device that Westminster security insists should not have been possible to access inside the building. A single encrypted file dropped into the inboxes of three senior journalists at the same moment. No subject line, no sender, no traceable source, only a timestamp and a single phrase typed in bold. Look at what they tried to hide. When the journalists opened it, the footage was short, barely 12 seconds. But powerful enough to set the entire political structure shaking. The clip didn't show faces, it didn't show the confrontation directly, but it captured the aftermath from outside the meeting room. Tom Hardy storming out, his voice low, and sharp, and Starmer's muffled shout from behind the door. The angle was shaky, filmed from behind a column, as if the person recording knew they were risking everything by doing it. In the seconds before the clip ends, Hardy's voice becomes clear for a moment. Three words that change the entire meaning of the encounter. This ends today. The leak spread instantly. Within minutes, social media exploded. Within an hour, the clip dominated every headline in the country. And by evening, a full political firestorm had ignited, one so intense that even government officials couldn't contain it. Nobody could believe the idea that Tom Hardy, of all people, had been involved in a confrontation with the Prime Minister. Theories flooded the internet, each more dramatic than the last. At number 10, the panic was immediate. Advisors scrambled to draft statements, but every attempt sounded weak. A private discussion, a misunderstanding, a casual visit. Nothing worked. The public had already decided this wasn't casual and definitely not harmless, because Hardy's expression in that clip wasn't the face of a man discussing charity or film policy. It was the face of a man deeply disappointed, deeply angry, and leaving without compromise. Inside Westminster, MPs demanded answers. Closed-door emergency meetings were called. Staffers were interrogated. Security logs were rechecked. Yet nobody could explain two critical questions. How did Tom Hardy get in without any official clearance? And more importantly, why was he meeting Starmer alone? The sense of mystery grew darker when another detail surfaced. A driver from the Westminster motor pool reported that Hardy's SUV wasn't booked under his name or his team's or any government contract. The licence plates didn't match any known registry. The vehicle simply appeared and disappeared. That sparked a different kind of fear, because this was no longer a story about a celebrity and a politician. This was starting to look like a covert operation, one involving secrecy, access, and the kind of precision that doesn't happen by accident. As the night deepened, more witnesses came forward. A security guard confirmed he heard shouting, but not the words. A staffer admitted she saw documents on the table through the slightly open door before it slammed shut. She described one sheet as marked official and clearly not meant for public eyes. Another staffer reported Starmer looked shaken for hours afterward, pacing his office, holding his head with both hands like someone who had just been confronted with a truth he wasn't prepared for. Meanwhile, Tom Hardy vanished. No public statement, no social media post, no appearance, nothing. This silence only intensified the drama. The longer he stayed quiet, the more people assumed the clash was something far bigger than a private argument. And as the pressure built, something even stranger happened. Anonymous MPs began whispering about a rumour circulating inside Parliament. A rumour claiming Hardy wasn't acting alone, that he was delivering a message from a group with influence far beyond Hollywood, a group that Starmer had allegedly ignored, underestimated, or provoked. But no one dared name the group. No one dared repeat the details, not out loud, not yet. Because everyone suspected something dangerous was now in motion, something that could take this scandal far beyond a simple confrontation and turn it into a national crisis. The rumour hardened into something more than a whisper the next morning. Before dawn, 2 unmarked cars arrived at the Cabinet Office. No lights, no registration plates, no official paperwork. The vehicles slipped through the back entrance and disappeared inside the building without alerting the press. Something that should have been impossible on any normal day. Yet on this day, nothing was normal. By sunrise, ministers were calling it the most chaotic morning of Starmer's leadership. Phones rang non-stop. Messages were being deleted faster than they could be read. Senior aides were ordered into silent rooms where no devices were allowed, and every conversation took place in low voices, as if the walls themselves had begun listening. Something had shifted overnight. Everyone felt it. Something big, something dangerous, something connected to that sealed room where Starmer and Tom Hardy had clashed. Then the first real clue appeared. A senior civil servant leaked a single line of information to a trusted reporter. No context, no further explanation, just one sentence that sent shockwaves through every newsroom in the country. Hardy came with evidence. The moment that message surfaced, the narrative changed. This wasn't a confrontation driven by emotion or disagreement. It wasn't a celebrity losing patience. It was something far deeper, something involving hidden information that Starmer didn't want exposed. Within hours, Parliament was buzzing. What evidence? About what? Why Hardie? Why so secret? And why did Starmer react with such visible panic afterward? As the speculation grew, a second leak emerged, this time from someone inside Starmer's own communications team. According to the insider, Hardie delivered a warning, not a threat, not a demand, a warning. One that Starmer allegedly refused to act on, but the nature of the warning remained hidden. The source refused to reveal details, saying only that the Prime Minister was afraid of the consequences. This was the first time in months that Starmer appeared vulnerable. He cancelled his morning briefing, he avoided the press, his schedule was rearranged, shortened, then completely wiped clean. Every step he took was monitored by additional security, and even his closest allies could feel the unease radiating from behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Hardie's silence became even more alarming. His team ignored calls, his agency refused interviews. And then something happened that made the entire situation feel far more orchestrated than accidental. Hardie's name disappeared from a scheduled public event he was supposed to headline. Officially, it was due to unexpected circumstances. Unofficially, people began whispering that he had been advised by someone powerful to stay out of sight. The more the public dug, the more suspicious everything became. And then the third leak hit. This one didn't come from journalists. It came from an unnamed MP who risked their entire career by speaking off record. They claimed the clash wasn't about film, activism or politics. It was about a covert government programme, something highly sensitive, recently authorised and deeply controversial. A programme Starmer approved quietly, a programme Hardie allegedly discovered through his own connections. According to the MP, Hardie confronted Starmer not as an actor, but as a messenger, not for a studio, not for fans, but for a group of high-profile individuals who had been tracking the programme's development. The MP's voice trembled as they gave their final line. Hardie didn't want a fight, he wanted to stop one. This statement flipped the entire story upside down. Now, the question wasn't what Hardie wanted, it was what Starmer was trying to hide. Inside Downing Street, alarms were now metaphorical and literal. Security protocols were raised to level black for internal communications. Staff were prohibited from discussing the incident, even with colleagues. And several ministers arrived looking as though they had been briefed on something far more serious than a celebrity confrontation. Still, one detail remained the centre of every theory. If Hardie had evidence, where was it now? Some believed Hardie still had it. Others believed Starmer seized it. A third group believed the evidence was sent to someone else entirely, someone preparing for a much bigger move. But the truth was far more dangerous than anyone expected, because the evidence didn't vanish at all. It was already spreading quietly, invisibly, into places no one imagined. The first sign that the evidence had escaped their control came just after midnight. A junior analyst working inside a government cybersecurity unit noticed unusual traffic passing through an encrypted channel. Traffic that didn't match any known system. At first, he thought it was a glitch, a software error, maybe a routine test. But then he saw the sender ID, unknown, unregistered, untraceable, and the file name matched one word that had already haunted Westminster for 2 days: confrontation. The moment he reported it, alarms triggered across 3 departments. Senior officials rushed into the operations room, scanning the data, realising with growing dread that the file was moving across multiple networks with deliberate precision. It wasn't leaking to the public, not yet. But it was being distributed to journalists, to foreign analysts, to private intelligence outfits, to people who had no business receiving anything from the British government. Within an hour, containment protocols failed. The file spread faster than any team could control. And suddenly, every official inside the building knew the truth. Whatever Hardie had brought, whatever he showed Starmer, it was never meant to stay hidden. Someone had set the evidence free, someone who planned this from the very beginning. Across London, the effect was immediate. Newsrooms lit up. Anchors rushed to their desks. Editors barked orders through chaotic rooms filled with ringing phones and flashing monitors. Everyone wanted to know the same thing: what was in the evidence and why was Starmer so desperate to bury it? By early morning, the first descriptions leaked, not the full files, just fragments. But even fragments were enough to shake the nation. According to these early reports, the evidence connected Starmer's administration to a classified initiative that bypassed oversight, hid financial trails, and involved individuals outside the political system, people with influence, people who operated in silence, people Hardie apparently knew. The public reaction was instant: fury, shock, confusion, and then fear. Because if a government programme was so dangerous that Tom Hardie, one of Britain's most respected public figures, risked everything to warn the Prime Minister, how bad could it truly be? Inside Downing Street, chaos swallowed the halls. Ministers demanded emergency briefings. Advisers argued in corners. Starmer locked himself in a private office, meeting with only 2 individuals and refusing to come out. Some staff said they heard shouting. Others said they heard nothing at all, just silence so deep it felt like the air had frozen. Meanwhile, Hardie resurfaced at last, not in person, not on camera, but through a written statement delivered anonymously to the nation's largest broadcaster. A statement only 2 sentences long: "I did what was necessary. The truth belongs to the public now." These words hit Westminster like a detonation, because it confirmed what everyone feared. Hardie had never intended to negotiate, persuade, or compromise. He came to deliver a warning. And when that warning was ignored, he let the truth spread on its own. Starmer's team scrambled to respond. They tried calling the evidence misinterpreted. They tried shifting blame. They tried buying time. But nothing worked. The story was bigger than them now. It was in every home, every phone, every conversation across the country. And then the final blow landed. A 4th leak, far more detailed than the rest, was released at dawn. This one included internal documents, encrypted memos, and heavily redacted summaries of the classified programme. Enough to expose what Starmer had been trying to contain. Enough to prove Hardie's confrontation was not a personal dispute, but a desperate attempt to stop something spiralling out of control. As the sun rose over Westminster, a crowd formed outside Parliament: reporters, citizens, opponents, allies, everyone demanding answers, everyone demanding accountability. And inside the building, politicians moved like shadows, rushed, anxious, whispering in hallways that suddenly felt too narrow. Starmer stepped forward at last. He looked exhausted, pale, carrying the weight of a man who had lost control of a storm he created. Cameras focused, microphones rose, and the country waited for him to speak. But before he said a word, a new sound emerged. Phones buzzing, notifications exploding. Another message sent to every device across the square. A final short clip, Hardie's voice, calm, controlled, certain. The truth was coming either way. The crowd fell silent. Even Starmer froze, because the message wasn't just a warning. It was a conclusion. The confrontation had never ended in that sealed room. It had only begun. And now, with every secret out in the open, Britain braced itself for the fallout, one that no one, not even the Prime Minister, could stop.